This Sunday, the Rams carry the weight of their city when they face the Eagles. Then it's a clash of MVP caliber quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. SportsGrid has you covered all day, starting at 8 a.m. with FST for daily fantasy lineups. Lock in your picks with Pro Football Today and stay dialed in with real-time betting on in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Road management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. Monday, Ohio State looks to overcome the luck of the Irish as Notre Dame eyes the trophy.
I can't even contain myself.
SportsGrid has you covered for the national championship. Start with Coast to Coast at 3 p.m., followed by game time decisions for last-minute picks. And stick around for in-game live all night for real-time betting action. Stay tuned to SportsGrid, your home for championship coverage.
Philadelphia, we go. Kevin Walsh, Donnie right side. Man, with respect, you can see it. And Joe Lisi here as we get set to break down Eagles-Rams. And let's just get right into it, all right? Because, Lisi, you have two chances. Let's be honest.
I have two chances.
No,
survive
let's be
at this
honest.
network and this show. Yep.
You have
an
two
interview.
chances.
It's about to be an interview.
All right.
Actually, wow, the more I think about it.
Yeah.
Donnie, let's pretend he's not here for a second.
Okay. Easy. Easy to do.
His NFC teams for the whole season.
Okay.
Green Bay, L.A., and Washington.
Okay.
And I think we both agree that last year the Eagles season really did take a turn when Joe stepped up to the plate.
Altered the universe.
In order, and it all lines up. In order for the Eagles to get where they belong as the best team in the National Football League and back at the Super Bowl, they had to go straight through Lisi's chest. And that's what I expect today. I expect the Eagles to go right through the chest.
Oklahoma drill just for you.
Like reverse.
Just for you.
I got you. Understood. All right, that makes sense.
The Philadelphia Eagles are the best team in football who have constantly shattered brains during this season. It is no surprise to me that people still don't get it. They didn't get it week one when they beat Green Bay. They didn't get it when they beat Cincinnati. They didn't get it when they beat the Rams or the Ravens or even the Packers last week. They just don't get it. So here we are today, and apparently the Rams have a huge quarterback advantage. That's interesting. Despite Hurts being better than Stafford this year, literally, look it up. Any number you want, look it up. Hurts was better. I mean, unless Stafford throws a prettier football, I don't even know if I'd agree with that. He throws it at weird angles. That's cool. So here we are with the Philadelphia Eagles and the best defense in football and the best offensive line and a head coach that doesn't lose and a quarterback that doesn't lose, which is all that matters, right? The Philadelphia Eagles today will beat the Rams because there are very few teams, very few, that can actually beat the Philadelphia Eagles and the Rams are not on that list.
No, am I back in the conversation now? Okay, good. No, I agree with you. I agree with you.
We'll see how long it lasts.
Well, I'll give props. I'll set it up. So you have a hot team in terms of LA that's won 5 of the last 6. Their road games, they've won by an average margin of victory of 7 points per game. We talk about how dominant Philadelphia's been over the past 2 months of the regular season. They won basically 13 out of the last 14 games. They've been dominant, right? So, again, outside the Washington loss, this team is absolutely legit offensive line and defensive line as well. And when you look at their home games, they've won those true home games because they counted the Brazil game as a home game by an average margin of victory of 11.1 points per game. I have been a backer of the Rams up until this point, and I've said to you that if they were playing Minnesota, if they were playing Washington maybe, right? Detroit, anybody in the NFC outside the Eagles, I would give a shot to the LA Rams to potentially win that in a playoff type of situation. This matchup today is a very bad matchup, I believe, for the LA Rams. I don't think Matt Stafford's going to have more than 3 seconds to throw the football. I don't think Kyron Williams is going to pound the rock between the tackles and sustain drives. I think they're going to get absolutely abused in the trenches, and I think that secondary is going to abuse Puka and maybe Cooper Kupp if he steps up and has a showing. Because, again, they're a one-trick pony. You know, when you have a passing attack that goes to one guy in particular, and that's Puka Nacua, I can't back this team in any capacity because, again, you look at that matchup in terms of what L.A. was able to do against Sam Darnold, that's exactly what the Philadelphia defense is going to do to Stafford. They're going to hit him early. They're going to hit him often. It's going to be long third downs. They're going to pin their ears back, and they're going to get to him multiple times, just the way the Chiefs, I believe, got to C.J. Stroud yesterday. And Saquon, Jalen Hurts on the ground, I don't think that team could stop them. They rushed for 314 yards in the first meeting, 7 yards per carry. I think it's a dominant Philadelphia win. I'm buying more into the over. We're seeing 43.5 come into the market. They might not have to throw it because I think they can run it right down their throats today.
Yeah, game time, you know, once we get closer, we'll see what these final numbers come into. But I am quite surprised by this because anytime you usually hear weather in the forecast, the line usually drops in both directions where you start to take some pieces here of the underdog team. You take a look at the Rams right now. Now we're seeing 7s popping up on the board, which means buying back in. -6.5s that were -110s earlier this morning, guys. -118s, -115s, -112s now, pinning that we might get closer to 7. The total, which opened up at 45.5 earlier in the week, some snow conditions come in as low as 42 just this morning. Most outlets out there, no lower than 42.5. And as Joe said, FanDuel and DraftKings also now with 43.5s. But the way we're talking about the Rams here, they are a quality team, but we're not using the same MO with the Philadelphia Eagles. We're not coming to this game saying the Eagles have a puncher's chance to win this game. Like, the weather is supposed to be the ultimate equalizer, but only equalizing teams like, let's just say, the back-in-the-day Rams, which you saw with Kurt Warner and the greatest show on turf at that point. Say, man, that's really going to hamper the passing game. The Philadelphia Eagles are built on making the passes they need to make with elite wide receivers, but understanding their power game, their offensive line, their double tight end sets, you know, using Saquon Barkley and the yards here that you can get from Jalen Hurts. So I don't think the weather is going to hamper it all too much. My question for me is, what is the game plan for this game as it goes, Joe? Because as we know, the snow is going to start to fall before the game. The heavier parts of the snow are coming in the second half. So if you are betting this football game or looking, or let's just say the Rams, Joe, and you can sort of move around, you better be throwing that football to get a lead early because things will get squirrely late. And if it does, and let's just say the Eagles are up 17-10 in the third quarter, where you're having a problem seeing the game on your TV, major advantage for the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, because a mobile quarterback that can run it, they could put Jalen Hurts in terms of a wildcat, pistol type of situation, hand it off to Saquon, and even Gainwell, I think, can gain some yards. It is going to be intriguing to see how this first quarter plays out. I'm back into the over. I do think we get through this total, but I'll just go back to you, Kev. I mean, again, I just think when you look at the interior line, I think Philadelphia has a significant advantage. And I'll just say this. I was dead wrong about Green Bay. That secondary beat up a very good Green Bay wide receiver core. Outside of Puka, I'm not threatened by anybody in terms of that wide receiver core.
Yeah, and Puka now is kind of one of these guys where it looks like at least twice a game, you're like, I think he's about to leave the game for good. He doesn't seem to be 100% right. I'll say this is the most unbiased man in the history of sports media. Some credit to you for breaking tendency. I think you've backed the Rams for about 30 straight games, so you can see they're up against it. That's how good the Eagles are.
But I was objective. I'm saying I think it's the worst matchup for them out of any of the teams that made the playoffs.
But it feels like, are you saying this just to keep your job on the set, though? Like, I feel like you had to go overboard in the opposite direction and praise where if I check that computer a little bit later, it's all fired up on the Rams. Like, boom, 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 boom.
Higbee, right? Again, got everybody. Kyrie.
Yeah, listen, the secret is always in the prop, and we'll see where it is.
The group chat's going to you're going to slip on a couple of those. Say, wait a second, you screenshotted the wrong thing right there. I feel.
I honestly believe, I don't think the Rams front seven, even though they stepped up against.
Let me ask you a question.
They're not going to stop the rush.
And let's just say the field is a little bit messy, but playable. Mm-hmm. What's the MO for the Rams in this game? Because we know Kyren Williams is a good running back.
But that's it. It's Kyren Williams. I mean, they live and die with the rushing attack with Kyren Williams. And again, they haven't even utilized him consistently in terms of the passing attack.
It's the turnover battle. If you say, let's live in a fairy world where the Rams win the game. What happened? They won the turnover battle. Stafford played clean, and Hurts went back to turning the football over, which he hasn't done in forever.
And as Kevin's point real quick, the MO always on the Philadelphia Eagles, and sometimes rightfully so, is how do they lose this game? Well, Jalen is terrible.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah,
that's the only way they lose is if he's terrible.
By the way, there are some Jalen Hurts numbers out there that are undeniable. We'll hit that quickly. And then we'll fly through some action on this game as we get set, because we're about 4 hours away from the Philadelphia Eagles absolutely detonating on this LA Rams team, and I cannot wait to watch it right here with you on SportsGrid.
This Sunday, the Rams carry the weight of their city when they face the Eagles. Then it's a clash of MVP caliber quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. SportsGrid has you covered all day, starting at 8 a.m. with FST for daily fantasy lineups. Lock in your picks with Pro Football Today and stay dialed in with real-time betting on in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why?
Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. Monday, Ohio State looks to overcome the luck of the Irish as Notre Dame eyes the trophy.
I can't even contain myself.
SportsGrid has you covered for the national championship. Start with Coast to Coast at 3 p.m., followed by game time decisions for last-minute picks. And stick around for in-game live all night for real-time betting action. Stay tuned to SportsGrid, your home for championship coverage.
All right, back right here on Pro Football Today. Let's dive into some numbers, all right? Let's dive into some facts. Some facts. People are saying the Eagles cannot win if this game is a shootout. Nuts. They scored 37 points on the LA Rams the last time they played. Also nuts. What suggests this is going to be a shootout? Nothing, obviously. And what's interesting about that is the Rams' defense has been given a lot of credit for how they closed the season. But I just am curious, what is close the season? Right? It's not after their bye, because that would include when they gave up 37 to Philly. It's not in the middle of November, because that would include when they gave up 42 to Buffalo. So it's the last 3 regular season games, you remove Week 18, right, where they played the Niners, Jets, Cardinals, and then what they did against Minnesota. Those are the games we're referencing. And that's fine if we want to do that. But then at what point will anybody who's on the Rams acknowledge how Stafford played in those games, which was terrible? Stafford was averaging under 6.5 yards per attempt. He was hardly completing 60% of his passes in that window. In the final 3 regular season games, where everybody tells me they turned the corner, Stafford had 1 touchdown and 1 pick. So why is this supposed to be some quarterback route when Jalen Hurts, from the bye week to the game against the Steelers, just removing the Commanders game, he played a quarter. He had the 3rd best passer rating in the NFL. 3rd passer rating. It's a passing-only statistic. He was the 2nd best at yards per pass attempt. 2nd best. Not 5th. That's efficiency. That's real. I don't understand. 26 total touchdowns, 1 interception. Here's the dirty secret, and nobody will think I'm serious. Hurts deserved more MVP consideration than the slander and garbage that we've heard around the Eagles quarterback. The Eagles team total in the first half's 12.5. They zoomed through that number. They used to start slow. Now they start red hot in football games. They will start red hot here. Saquon Barkley, longest rush over 19.5. He had 2 70-yarders against this Rams team. He had a 76-yarder last week that he decided to pull up on so he could save it for this game. That's going to zoom through as well. The Philadelphia Eagles are here to route, roll, and rock this L.A. Rams team, Joe.
No, you're right, Kevin, and I agree with you. And I think when you just talk about perception, you're not going to like my answer, and I'm not trying to ruffle any feathers here. But the reason why Stafford is viewed as the better quarterback, whether I believe that or not at this point in their career, is because he's won a Super Bowl, right? And until Jalen and this team get and close the door, you don't get that type of perception and streak rate. And I'm not saying I agree with it. It's just that Stafford's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. They're in the playoffs. They beat a team that was potentially 14-3 in the regular season, a team that a lot of people thought was one of the best defensively in terms of the NFC, and they stepped up and they moved the football. Now they have to go outside to a much more physical team in the trenches, and we'll see if they can step up. I don't believe they can. And again, I think Jalen Hurts is a winner. He was a winner at Alabama, was a winner throughout his career at Oklahoma, stepped up, and has really become one of the better quarterbacks in the NFC. And if he leads his team to a Super Bowl and wins it, he'll get that type of street credit.
Yeah, you got to win it, and that's the crap. And also, by the way, played very well in the Super Bowl, dropped the fumble and that, and people look back. They weren't able to close out Patrick Mahomes. So Jalen Hurts, he can do his own damage here by winning this football game, winning next week and getting to another Super Bowl. He's still early in his career. The one thing we do know is he fits perfectly in this offense the way they like to operate. Handle the football, take care of it, don't throw interceptions, hand the football off, run it yourself, and make the plays when you need to at the wide receiver position, what they've done. But also understand this when you're heading into this game. The Eagles have a lot of advantages. Number one, they are the home team here. They are the better team overall. One team's coming from the West Coast to the East Coast. That team coming from the West Coast, the Rams, is a dome team who played in a neutral site dome and had to fly back home and are worried about so much things off the football field than just football itself. Trust me, if they're going to be prepared, they'll be ready, but that's still going to wear on you. You come east, and now you're going to say, okay, dome team is not playing in 72 degrees in September and light winds, and Matthew Stafford can have fun in the pocket. He looks fantastic. Let's be honest. Matthew Stafford has always been a dome quarterback. This is a new phenomenon where he came from Green Bay from 15 years and then said, hey, man, wound up in Los Angeles. He was a dome quarterback in Detroit. Take him outside, bad weather conditions, 1-8 overall, 14 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. And if you say, boy, what's interesting, it's Philadelphia and it's snow. Yeah, we saw this in 2013 where he was abysmal in that football game with Megatron at wide receiver and a 14-point lead, only to get smashed by double digits because why? The Philadelphia Eagles had the better offensive line and the better running back that day as well and held out. Now, we can't go back to 2013 and say it correlates to this game, and that's how they're going to play. But let's understand this. Yes, we love the passes that Matthew Stafford throws in a dome. We don't love them when there's weather concerns.
The one game that he played that had temperatures relative to today was against the Jets. He was 14 of 19 for 110 yards, 1 touchdown and a pick. They had 2 touchdown drives. One came on a 33-yard field. The other came on a 21-yard field because the Jets kept spotting them short fields. In fact, one of the field goals they kicked in that game also came on a short field. Oh, also, last week against the Vikings, opening drive touchdown. Awesome. Great. They had one other offensive touchdown drive, and you guys said it came on a short field.
What would surprise you this week, though? Like, give me a Rams perspective today if we do have slushy temperatures. It's like, hey, Stafford, 22 of 24, rips the Eagles' number 1 defense apart. What would surprise you from the Rams today? Would say, man, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, I mean, if Stafford goes out there and absolutely shreds the Eagles' secondary, that would be pretty stunning.
Cooper Kupp wakes up 9 for 126 and 3 scores.
That's what it is. It's got to be a player that we know Kyron, right? And we talked about Nico Collins yesterday, taking away your best option. Your best option right now for the Rams is Puka for the receiving game and Kyron as it relates to the rushing attack. I don't think they're going to be able to run the football today, though, but we'll see.
I just think, for perspective, though, just so people have an understanding around these quarterbacks and where their numbers currently line up, right? And again, listen, sometimes things go left, right? Stafford's passing yards prop today, 211.5. Not 311.5, it's 20 yards higher than Hurts. His passing touchdown number today, over 1.5, more juice than Jalen.
Yeah.
More than Jalen's. The interception number for Stafford, minus 120. Hurts, plus 126. So here's the thing, man. There's a lot of talk, a lot of junk, a lot of nonsense, okay? And then there's the reality, which is the Eagles are the best team in football, and they will put that on display once again later today.
Let's do some Sports Millions pick-up next.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Road management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the game starts so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern.
Live to right here. It is Pro Football Today on SportsGrid. Kevin Walsh, Donnie Rightside, and Joe Lisi. And it's time for some Sports Millions pick. I figured we dive into an old bag of tricks here and take a look at the quarterback position and who could potentially be moving around. We know that there are expectations on at least 2, probably 3 of these quarterbacks to get on the move here throughout this slate. And then you've got Matt Stafford. Josh Allen, higher, 49.5 rushing yards. Did not run that much against Denver. Mm-hmm. I imagine the ante is up here, though, Donnie, against Baltimore.
It really is. And, just the MO of handicapping football games and seeing what quarterbacks need to do and how many times we talk about the Buffalo Bills where it feels like at times it is a one-man band, even though they have a wonderful running back in James Cook. Phenomenal. Had the best season he has, rushing touchdowns left and right, yards out the wazoo, even seen that already in the postseason as well. But we know when this game comes down to 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, 3rd and 5, and you must have that first down, he, talking about Josh Allen, is going to run. Same thing in the red zone. Like if we look at 1st and goal from the 9-yard line, and he just rolls out of the pocket. Yes, he's going to look for a touchdown pass, but he understands the task at hand is make sure you get every opportunity to gouge that defense, even if it means with the legs. So when we're talking about Josh Allen's props going higher, it's a hard sell for me, Joe, to say I would love to go under or lower with him.
It's a great look. Yeah. And the other factor that I'll throw in is the last time they played in the primetime atmosphere in Baltimore, he had a terrible game. Yeah. He threw for 180 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. The rushing attack was non-existent because they were getting blown out in the first half. So the ability to move to the AFC Championship game, take games over with your legs, I think it's a great look.
So now you take a look at Lamar. 54.5 is his rushing number here on Sports Millions Pick'em, higher or lower. Look, Lamar, I am still surprised we're not seeing more of an adjustment on his number. This is a player who is averaging 55.5, I don't see how anyone would go lower on the Lamar number. And I know sometimes you go, but come on, don't you worry that everybody could be looking that direction. He averages over 80 yards per game on the ground in his postseason career. He, more than any player, ups the ante when the playoffs begin on the ground.
And it started, I want to say, Christmas Day, right, where he had that 3-touchdown performance, had the big run for about 45, 50 yards. He followed that up in terms of the Saturday game against Cleveland, right, as a big favorite. And he did huge plays and broke contain on the first couple of drives. He had that number in terms of the first couple of drives en route to the dominating home win. So if he has running lanes today, and if Buffalo does play man-to-man coverage, he's going to break contain just to what we saw last night with Jaden Daniels.
It's pretty simple that the whole MO and concept of you don't want to get your quarterback banged up and nicked up during the regular season. But once you get to the postseason, use every attribute you have. And if you're healthy and your legs feel good, you are running in the postseason. You are running over linebackers. You are diving into the end zone, landing on your head to try to score to make sure your team advances here. So it's a no-brainer for me. In no way, shape, or form, we're looking for those lower prices on the quarterbacks. They're going to handle their business today.
I now, when you bring up Hurts and Stafford, have to say, while Stafford is not way off the beaten path.
Yeah.
Higher half a rushing yard. I mean, why not? I actually think there's a very good chance he gets through this number in his postseason, recent postseason career. We've seen it. I know he didn't get it against Minnesota, but he did have a 15-yard scramble earlier this year in the game against Philadelphia. Then the Jalen Hurts number there for reference, Donnie, 37.5.
Yeah.
On the ground.
Absolutely love that one, because if you're looking in a snow game where the advantage is what they're telling us is you can't get home on the pass rush, how about a mobile quarterback making moves on a linebacker that's stuck in concrete there in 6 inches of snow at this point? Absolutely love that.
I love both quarterbacks, and for Stafford, quarterback sneak on 4th and short or a goal line type of situation. Why hand it off to Kyron Williams when you just take the sneak? There's your half a yard right there, and he's not going to take the knee because I think we're all in agreement. Philly wins the game.
If you do take a look, you pair all 4 quarterbacks together on Sports Millions Pick'em. I believe you were looking at 11x your payout there. 20x, excuse me. My, oh, my. That's juice. That's tangy.
How much can we play on this?
That's what you got over there on Sports Millions Pick'em. We take a quick break and hit some of the top NFL headlines next. It's SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern.
Back at the right here on SportsGrid. Joe Lisi, Donnie right side, Kevin Walsh with you. And we just get a little bit of extra time now to feel into what we saw yesterday and what it could mean moving forward a little bit. Let's start on the Detroit side of the coin here. Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn are two of the most sought-after coordinators in football. I don't think Ben Johnson will have any difficulty getting a job. We can talk about landing spots in a moment. Do you think at all, Donnie, Aaron Glenn and that performance will be held against him potentially during these opportunities to become a head coach?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because in the NFL, it's not like there's 32 teams and one job is up every year and you have to go up against like Bill Belichick and Vrabel and anybody who wants in from, Pete Carroll, let's just say, has won championships. There's 8 spots, let's just say, available. Quality, what do you look for? How do you lead men? How do you lead the organization? Do you ever embarrass the organization? And what have you done on the field? And it all measures out there. When you hear Aaron Glenn talk, he is a head football coach. He talks that way. When you hear Dan Campbell talk about Aaron Glenn, this guy's out of here the minute there's a chance to hire him. I truly believe that if he gets in front of an ownership group, they're not just saying to themselves, well, what did you do in that last game against Washington? It was hot when you had a lot of players deep. Now, granted, they sound like some excuses. Oh, what did you want me to do? Guys are injured out there. You guys get injured all the time. I get that. But in no way, shape, or form for me, if I'm putting odds on it, it's 90% Aaron Glenn, Joe, is a head coach next year.
Yeah, I agree with that. Whether he falls in, New Orleans or Jacksonville or his former team, the New York Jets, he's going to get a job. Do I believe that this performance sort of exposed him to a capacity? I think a little. And I understand, that he had injuries. But this is still a rookie quarterback that put up 45 points in a playoff situation in your building that you couldn't come up with 1 or 2 critical stops. You were able to do that against a veteran in Sam Darnold, but you got exposed from a defensive perspective last night. I really believe that. And again, if we're talking dominant defensive coordinators, It's not like Spagnuolo. It's not like Vic Fangio that, was a former coach with the Broncos, right? I mean, dominant defenses. They were a good defense, but are we putting, again, we're not putting them with some of the top 5 unit, are we? I mean.
No, I think what is interesting.
No, I was just going to say, to Donnie's point, he does get the organizational standpoint. That's what you hear. He's a football guy. He understands the responsibilities. He understands the full role of being a head coach, maybe where Robert Salah was a great defensive coordinator, but was a fish out of the water in terms of handling the responsibility.
I am not I don't think you can sell me on Aaron Glenn as a head coach because of his defenses. I don't think they were very good in Detroit. I find myself occasionally when as you guys mentioned how they talk about Aaron Glenn getting pulled into stuff like that. But that just feels destined to fail. And that would be my concern. Because I still largely would skew offense when hiring a coach, right?
Good.
And I'm now bringing in a defensive coach whose defenses maybe aren't that good. It's a little odd, right? I understand the notion, leader of men. What's tough is how I feel about an Aaron Glenn hire may become more concrete in how Dan Campbell looks with both Glenn and Ben Johnson gone. Because Dan Campbell's MO is just being a leader of men. That's the idea, right, for Dan Campbell. He's aggressive. He gets there's other elements of it, but we understand that. So can he then refresh the pile, if you will? It's not impossible. Sean McDermott doesn't get credit. Maybe, I don't know if he does deserve it, whatever, but they've, ran through some offensive coordinators there.
Yeah.
They're in the playoffs every year. Dable, Dorsey, Brady, they're in the playoffs every year. Josh certainly is a part of it, but that's a big reason McDermott's able to keep his job in Buffalo is he does his part, and they get an offensive guy who does theirs, right? On the Ben Johnson side of it, I will be very surprised if he doesn't end up the Vegas head coach at this point. I don't know. Donnie, are you interested in talking about the fact that Brady couldn't say his name on the broadcast last night?
It's fantastic.
Is that, I mean, that has to stop.
And he says he's still coming back next year to be in the broadcast booth.
Yeah, they got to cut it out.
What happened? Because I watched the games with, I was out on mute. What did he say?
Because of his role with Vegas, because he's interviewing Ben Johnson, like everything he could possibly do is tampering. And he couldn't even say Ben Johnson's name on the broadcast, basically, just because he's a minority owner of Vegas. By the way, he's essentially the GM of the Vegas Raiders at this point, right?
Yeah,
vice president, executive.
Right.
So I don't know. That whole thing is totally wonky. We'll see though, because he's calling the Super Bowl. So we'll see what happens after he calls the Super Bowl. I think Ben Johnson ends up in Vegas. I think it's a home run hire. And let me say this: I think Tom Brady has already proven to be incredibly valuable to Vegas because I don't think Ben Johnson even steps into the Raiders building unless Brady's there.
That's what he said. Yeah, Ben Johnson said he just met Tom Brady like a week or two ago, and that's when he had the interview in regards to the Raiders. So, or at least spoke to them. So it was entertaining. That's what Tom Brady brings. You would hope that if Tom Brady's a minority owner, Donnie, he brings that type of, shock and awe to the organization.
If you are a young, hot coordinator like Ben Johnson that can probably pick any team, they probably could have done that last year, but decided to stick around in Detroit, was a little bit more comfortable. Now he's ready to spread his wings. But if you said, boy, give me one spot you don't, and I don't care about jobs that are open or not open, give me one spot that you should never go to. Living in Vegas, fantastic. Maybe get some good weather, get some nightlife here. That's great. Outside of that, Jim Harbaugh and Herbert on one side, Bo Nix and Peyton on one side, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. You've got to put it this way. This might be the greatest coaching job I've ever seen, which in 2 to 3 years, if the Raiders are actually in the playoffs with a chance to win that division.
Yeah.
And he chose that spot here, which would be he's never looking at it unless Tom Brady is there, back to your point.
Well, so to that, and you guys won't agree, but on Game Time, we ranked the coach openings. Mm-hmm. I think Vegas is the second best job. Because
based on what, though?
I think Brady is getting people into that room that never – they have the second most money in football, projected 2025 cap space. So everyone down is like, hey, man, T. Higgins is going to go to Green Bay. Yeah, I don't know. Might be playing in a Raider uniform. What are they going to do with the –
even, you could build that because, again, you need a quarterback to compete. But
Yes.
it looks like you might have constant Pro Bowlers / MVP / Hall of Famers that you're going to go toe-to-toe with while you're just trying to get your team off the ground.
So I know that is, listen, it's obviously a potential worry, right? But every division could come with some concerns, right? Like the Bears' job with the North and how good it was this season, right? Like ultimately, Donnie, what if Andy Reid retires in the next 3 years, right? Herbert doesn't have a playoff win. We don't know what Bo Nix will look like in year number 2. I'm not saying saying the AFC West is soft, right? But if I'm Ben Johnson and I have all of the money in the world, Brady is giving me all of the relationships that I didn't even know was possible. We've heard, I think Caps told us, like, Ben Johnson might be a bit of a quirky guy, a little off-putting.
Right. Yeah.
Good. He's not in the meetings. He can come in the meetings, show people a couple of plays, and leave, and let Tom do all. That is, to me, the real game changer. They draft 6th. They might get quarterback. Here's the other thing, and I am trying to do this without anybody thinking that this is like a hot take or I'm trying to rile anyone up. If Brock Bowers doesn't make the Hall of Fame, I'll be stunned. Rookie year, all pro, broke the single-season record for receptions at the tight end position. I'll be stunned if he doesn't make the Hall of Fame. So Ben Johnson and what he's gotten out of tight ends in Detroit, Donnie, gets Brock Bowers for a decade?
Yeah, probably only for 2 years because the Raiders' MO is get really good football players. Khalil Mack, you got Josh Jacobs, you got Devontae Adams, you got Carr. Like, there's been a ton of really good football. And by the way, Max Crosby probably going to be shipped out as well. I just look at it. Thank God Tom Brady's here because it is a mess organization. And maybe he can dig them out, but instead of digging out 3 or 4 feet, he's 20 feet below trying to get out from that thing.
Yeah, I could certainly be off base. I think Brady was the step 1. Ben Johnson's the step 2. And then you potentially...
And then he plays for him next year, too, Tom Brady. How about that?
I mean, is he allowed to at this point? And then he can call his game, like with a little...
Like Stern back in the NBA. Shaq, you just go to L.A. We'll make it happen. Go ahead.
We'll be right back.
This Sunday, the Rams carry the weight of their city when they face the Eagles. Then it's a clash of MVP caliber quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. SportsGrid has you covered all day, starting at 8 a.m. with FST for daily fantasy lineups. Lock in your picks with Pro Football Today and stay dialed in with real-time betting on in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Road management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. Monday, Ohio State looks to overcome the luck of the Irish as Notre Dame eyes the trophy.
I can't even contain myself.
SportsGrid has you covered for the national championship. Start with Coast to Coast at 3 p.m., followed by game time decisions for last-minute picks. And stick around for in-game live all night for real-time betting action. Stay tuned to SportsGrid, your home for championship coverage.
Back right here on SportsGrid, Kevin Walsh, Donnie Rightside, and Joe Lisi, talking a little bit about things surrounding Detroit. Their coordinators could potentially both become head coaches by the time we're talking to you next week, right? I think maybe that is the expectation. I'm sure some of these teams would love to get these jobs buttoned up and move forward with whatever is going to potentially be next there. Let me just quickly say with Houston's season ending, I feel, and again, let's just pull back all the back and forth, right? Everybody knows they played close, right? Closer even than that final score suggests. Certainly deserve to cover the 8.5. The idea, though, around the Texans is the same as it was last year. Man, if they get healthy, that'll be dangerous.
Yep.
I do wonder, though, a little bit, Donnie, if we could get to a point where they are snake-bitten. They're so young in their run, obviously, so I'm not saying they'll forever be snake-bitten, but the Texans, I think, are going to be another team who finds themselves within the, let's call it, top 6 of the conference and maybe top 10 Super Bowl odds.
But here's the problem. Like, we're expecting them just to be healthy, and you say that. Did you watch Tank Dell's injury? I mean, who knows what he's going to be, not next year, his entire career. Stephon Diggs is not a young spring chicken with a devastating injury. So if we're expecting them to be like, hey, Tank Dell's going to appear game number 1 along with Stephon Diggs and Nico Collins, and away we go. And keep in mind, Nico Collins was, 5-6 weeks close to with a hamstring injury at this point. But you can't underestimate injuries, but you can't over-expect them, if that makes sense. So I'm still buying on them. And last year, the same way I talked about them, in the months of May, June, and July, like, boy, I think this team can actually take down the Kansas City Chiefs if the right components come to place. I still believe that because I think the organization is through the dark times. They found DeMeco Ryans. They get a new front office ownership group in there. And then you take a look at the quarterback that they got. They have the components to be great and a defense that looks like it could sizzle and shine for the next couple of years. I'm still a buyer.
Yeah, me too. And I think when you just look at the division, Kev, outside of Jacksonville, weapon-wise, that would be the only team. I know the Colts are there, but they haven't elevated and progressed in terms of Anthony Richardson, in terms of the passing attack. Can he take the next step? So they're going to be favorites to win the division, right? So they're going to be a playoff caliber team. And to Donnie's point as well, the injuries, Mixon as well, not getting any younger. He's been battling a little bit nicked up at the end of the regular season. You need a home run hitter outside of Nico Collins. If Stephon Diggs returns from the ACL, maybe that's all they need. But again, I think they can draft in this upcoming draft and still, they've done a great job in terms of evaluating young talent and coaching that talent up. Yeah. I think they're going to be there now, whether they're going to be an AFC championship caliber team like we saw with Cincinnati and Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase for those couple of years. We'll see.
By the way, real quick on this, Bobby Slowick. We figuring he's a head coach this year?
No.
No? That will really help Houston.
Yeah.
But the interest, listen, I'm just, what I saw, there was people who were like, yeah, they need to get rid of Bobby.
I don't think so.
Honestly, you need to get rid of, because why? Like, if they had those 3 wide receivers in that offense somewhat healthy for the year, nobody would be saying that.
So I would agree with you.
Yeah.
And I think year 1 was so great that even any deficiencies this year, you're not going to get rid of him. But I would be pretty stunned if Bobby Slowick was named head coach of any football team with the way this season ultimately played out. We have 6 jobs.
Yeah.
Ben Johnson, Liam Cohen, Joe Brady, you imagine, are all in front of him on the pecking order, right?
I mean, are we hearing
Ellen
more?
Moore?
No, you're right, but like Cohen, like I just feel like, yes, and he should be, but do you feel like he's gaining enough traction? Like I'm not just hearing it in terms of like interviews. Have the Jets interviewed him?
Cohen feels like Jags are bust to me.
Staying in state.
So we didn't get to do kind of a post-mortem that's fully on Tampa season when it ended, but there's an extreme thing that occasionally is suggested, but nobody ever thinks will happen. There's a world Buffalo could be in the same spot. True, like, Donnie, if the Bucs are about to lose Liam Cohen, they go, all right, sorry, Todd, you're gone. Liam, you're up. Like, is that something that actually should be considered in that room? Is that realistic in any capacity?
I think they really like Todd Bowles, but I'm going to say this. It happened in Tampa a couple of years ago. Tom Brady's like, I filter on here and mess around with retiring every year. I love Bruce Arians. I can't go through another year with him. Yeah. So what did Bruce Arians do? You know what? Great organization. I'm going to get paid a lot of money. I'm going to go up to the booth, give me Todd Bowles because he'll stay out of my way. The reason I say this is, what happens if Baker Mayfield goes, man, we got something here. Yeah. Like, I lost Canales, loved him.
Yeah.
Man, I can't lose Liam Cohen here. Look, I'm going to perform either way, but you want to make me comfortable, he's got to stay. then you have chances. And then you tell Todd Bowles, do you want to move on? Like, he's not, you know what I mean? Of course, they don't want to do that. But Bruce Arians was up there in age going, like, hey, I won my Super Bowl. Let me do the right thing here and still get $5 million, $6 million a year at that point.
It's tough because you're still talking about a coach that's won the division, 3 straight years?
I saw that. And that's true. But what that does then is ignores
big picture?
The division. Because they've won the division 3 straight years. I believe they rank 15th in the NFL in wins over the last 3 years. Okay. I think the other teams that have won the division 3 straight years are Kansas City and Buffalo. Like, those teams are inside the top 5 in wins over the last 3. I'm not trying to, again, I think I was singing Bowles' praises going into the Washington game. I'm not saying they lost because of Bowles. What I'm saying is what Donnie suggested. So we had Canales. Things were great. We lost him. That was a worry point. Cohen comes in. Do we want to lose someone again? What's wild, though, maybe people will still go, well, maybe it's not. Maybe it's Baker. Maybe Baker found his level and Baker has the goods. I mean, I think that's on the board.
And not only that. I mean, just look at the addition of Bucky Irvin. Now you have a 1-2, punch as it relates to the rushing attack.
Maybe get Godwin back next year. McMillan as a nice little 3. There's really good components there. But it is something where it's rare to say, like, hey, man, you've won the division a couple straight years. You are a bona fide, unbelievable defensive coordinator. The players like you. Except
here you go.
Can I just throw something out quick? And I know we don't have a ton of time left. The fact that Robert Saleh, one of the hotter head coach candidates, for me, again, anybody who defended Rodgers, the Jets, from that decision should really feel ridiculous because he's either going to be a head coach or the highest paid defensive coordinator in football in San Fran.
Yes, I think he's a better coordinator than he is coach. But I'll just say this, and this relates to Todd Bowles as well, those defensive-minded coaches, and we've talked about Aaron Glenn, big picture. The fact that he's more of like maybe a CEO as opposed to being just a dominant defensive coordinator like Eberflus and Allen in New Orleans, look at how that turned out.
He's going to go to San Francisco for 1 year, and he will be a head coach next year after that.
Yeah.
It just is stunning to me that played out the way. He was the first coach fired. And
Which
everybody else around the NFL was like...
And everything went worse when he got left.
Be right back.
This Sunday, the Rams carry the weight of their city when they face the Eagles. Then it's a clash of MVP caliber quarterbacks, Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. SportsGrid has you covered all day, starting at 8 a.m. with FST for daily fantasy lineups. Lock in your picks with Pro Football Today and stay dialed in with real-time betting on in-game live game day, only on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Road management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid. Monday, Ohio State looks to overcome the luck of the Irish as Notre Dame eyes the trophy.
I can't even contain myself.
SportsGrid has you covered for the national championship. Start with Coast to Coast at 3 p.m., followed by game time decisions for last-minute picks. And stick around for in-game live all night for real-time betting action. Stay tuned to SportsGrid, your home for championship coverage.
Is it crunch time already?
Whoa.
Is that possible?
Let me see why you picked. What are you doing? All right, let's go. After it.
You have one that I want to hear a lot more about. So let's dive into it right now. We're live with you right here. It is Pro Football Today, and it's time for the Sunday Morning Crunch. Crunch time. How'd we do on Crunch yesterday?
2-1.
Same. You?
I think I was 1 and 2. I have to go back and look. I think it was 1 and 2. I'm not really sure.
So many bets on the board.
Here we go. You're gonna make me look back.
No,
it's
fine. It's fine.
I had Jaden Daniels over his number.
Passing.
Oh no, Stroud over his number.
I'll tell you the Daniels thing quickly to sell me.
Yeah.
His live number, I think, at one point, like 347.5. Him not cashing 300 plus tickets.
I thought that's his
tough.
one ticket yesterday. Because I saw somebody online. I was like, that's right. Joe had him for 300, and then it was 3.25. And it was the final play with that catch. And I go, this is one where I used to hold my like not look and then like peek through. And I was like, please just give him the 300. And of course, it was 299.
I think you'll love my sell me something today. Love it, not like love.
So I took Stroud and Daniels for 300 plus passing plus rushing.
Mm-hmm.
Stroud finishes 13 yards shy.
Yeah.
But the last play of the game, they could have had anything they wanted, and he took the knee instead, which was tough.
Yeah, it's gutless. That's gutless.
Throw it
when
out
you're down
there.
by 9, you try to
Talk about gutless. How about Detroit at the end of the game? Can't punch in a meaningless touchdown. Come on, that's gutless.
Throw
an interception.
When I saw you really need a passing touchdown here, I couldn't figure out what it was for, even honestly, but. All right, let's get into it here, though. Lisi, as always, you bat lead off. What do you got, crunch wise?
So if the snow's going to be a factor, and we know that they want to run the football with Saquon Barkley, I also like Barkley today coming out of the backfield, catching one pass. 11.5 is his receiving total, guys. He could bust it. 25-plus has great value as well. But for crunch, we're taking over the 11.5. Late game, also Dallas Goedert. I was on him last week. He got the big touchdown, 40-plus. He cashed, but 36.5 today. Again, short to intermediate throws with Jalen Hurts. I like that in terms of the offensive philosophy. And then in the late game, I feel like, and I talked about it with Carver all week, Bills have been saving Amari Cooper, 22.5 for this particular game. Wide out, key acquisition, 22.5. He could get to 40-plus today.
Yeah, I'm rooting for you on that, too, because yesterday my 150% parlay blew up because I had a wide receiver that needed 20 yards, which he got 9 out of his last 10 games. Ended up not even with a catch on yesterday, which was ridiculous, and that was my guy on the Kansas City Chiefs. So buying those super-duper wide receivers that should produce or at least be veteran guys to get in it, I'll root for you on there. For me, we're going here with Lamar Jackson over 9.5 carries to start. Why do I like that? It's the playoffs. It's Lamar Jackson. He's going to eat on the ground. He's on turf. He'll be under pressure for this game, and I do believe that. The only thing that makes me a little bit nervous here is you do lose out on the easy ones, which means quarterback sneak, maybe get 1 or 2 of those a game. But factoring in, I believe the Buffalo Bills win. If I'm sitting there with 7 carries, make it 8. Make it 9, make it 10 on the drop downs here as taking a knee. So I think I'm going to get that one. Jalen Hurts over 37.5 rushing yards. As you know, weather conditions here, you're going to lean on the running game. It's pretty simple to explain it. But how about this one coming up? Eagles-Rams over 55.5 combined rushes at a minus 125 price. Ooh, that's interesting. But, snowy conditions, should they be able to run more? Take that out of the equation. 13 straight games for the Philadelphia Eagles and their opponents outside of the game where Saquon Barkley sat along with their starters in Week 18. They hit that 13 straight weeks with a minimum of 59 carries, not 55.5. So if I look at snowy conditions, Saquon Barkley doing his, Jalen Hurts getting his, little Kenneth Gainwell on the side, and maybe close to 20 touches out of Kyren Williams, I think that really holds up. I'm looking for 60-plus carries, and I think I got a bargain price at 55.5.
Yeah, that's an interesting one to me. Yeah. That's new. That's fun. I like stuff like that. Just kind of every play is a play. Yep. I think that's a good time. Lisi, I'm with you on Goddard, but I took the long reception at 15.5, minus 118. That's been a vulnerable spot against the L.A. Rams. Goddard's been very good at getting the long reception in. If he goes over that number, you expect a long catch to come with it. I did take Stafford over the half rushing yard at plus 114. It's one play. It's one scramble, and if it goes for 6 yards, you're in the clear, right? Some quarterbacks, we don't know what it's going to look. If he goes for 6 yards, you're in the clear. I'm taking my shot with Stafford. And then this would have been my best bet if my best bet wasn't my best bet, if you kind of get the story here. Ravens-Bills, over 3.5 total passing touchdowns. I think both quarterbacks are in line to throw multiple passing touchdowns in this game. Both of these defenses, touchdowns allowed far more through the air than the ground. 51.5 total. We expect both quarterbacks here to light that scoreboard up. We have NFL insider Adam Kaplan joining us next on Pro Football Today.